Hello, my name is Glynn Tonsor. I'm a faculty member of the Department of Agriculture Economics here at Kansas State University. The purpose of this short video is to highlight some basic concepts and available resources related to our economic understanding of beef demand. An issue that often arises when I talk about economic issues in the beef industry is a confusion between a change in beef demand and a change in quantity of beef demanded. And this is an easy thing to understand how it can be confused because they're related concepts, but importantly, they are different. Beef demand is a schedule of beef quantities consumers will purchase over a range of prices. Another way to think of this is beef demand is the demand curve that economists often speak of. The quantity of beef demanded, however, is the quantity of beef consumers will purchase at a given price. That is, this is referring to one point on that demand curve. So beef demand is the entire curve or a schedule of quantities that consumers would purchase, while a quantity of beef demanded refers to a single point on that demand curve, and it's a specific quantity of beef consumers would purchase at a given price. So those two issues are related, but it's important to understand the difference, and I hope to illustrate that here in graphical format. This is an example of depicting price versus quantity demanded, and the green line being a common demand curve. You can think of this as a schedule of the quantities of beef that consumers would demand at alternative prices. The question that comes up is, okay, if we move from some initial situation, such as when we have a demand and supply situation like this, where we have an initial price P1 and an initial quantity demanded Q1, and the supply is reduced, in this example from supply naught to supply 1, such as what it looks like we're going to be going into in 2013 and 2014 with beef supplies being reduced, the question I often get is, what has happened to beef demand? The short answer is nothing. If you move, in this case, if supply is reduced and the demand curve has not changed, hence the green line has not moved in this chart, we simply change the quantity demanded from Q1 to Q2, or from the red Q to the yellow Q, and we increase the price from P1 to P2. That is, if nothing else changes but we reduce the available supply, as depicted in this example, and the demand curve holds constant, the price and quantity demanded adjust, but demand itself has not moved. This is very important to understand because you can have a reduction in per capita beef consumption and not have a change in demand. Or actually, you can have a reduction in per capita consumption and have an increase in beef demand. That leads to this other clarification between the difference in demand changes in per capita consumption. In order to understand this difference, it's important to understand exactly what per capita consumption is. Narrowly, per capita consumption is simply taking domestic beef production plus beef imports, subtracting off beef exports, making an adjustment for cold storage, or the amount of meat we're stacking up in freezers, and dividing that resulting sum of quantities by the resident population. When you do that, you have identified what per capita consumption is for some period of interest. It's important to recognize that that particular calculation is simply quantities. Those are all quantities of beef, and quantities are the number of people to come up with that per capita consumption value. There is no prices in that formula. That's important to highlight because looking at per capita consumption in isolation without any additional information about beef prices tells us fairly little about beef demand. So yes, these two concepts are related, but I encourage you not to get the two confused. Additional details on these points that might sound like semantics but are actually pretty important, and I encourage you, particularly if you're in the beef industry, to spend more time to understand the important difference, is you can go to our Ag Manager website where we have a page devoted to beef demand issues. There's actually a fact sheet on the intuition of a beef demand index that I regularly track that uses these concepts to monitor how demand is changing over time. There's links to beef demand oriented research projects and related information that I encourage you to take advantage of. Thank you for your time and enjoy what's left of your day.